Good evening and welcome to the Weeknight. I'm Alicia Menendez with Michael Steele and Jackie Elamani in for Symone. Breaking tonight, Republicans, they are already bracing for defeat in November. New reporting shows White House lawyers are preparing for Democrats to take control of Congress and bring real oversight to the Trump administration for the first time.
Then the Trump Justice Department demanding Georgia hand over the names of every 2020 election worker. Mark Elias is here to react and discuss his new lawsuit against Florida's gerrymandered congressional map.
Also breaking, the president, he's kind of struggling to answer basic questions about his war of choice with Iran. But he has no problem making horrifying remarks to a group of children today at the White House. But folks, let's begin with the breaking news. It's primary night. Yes, it is. 2 states ahead of this year's crucial midterm elections are taking place tonight. Polls are now closed across the entire state of Indiana, and in Ohio, polls will close in just 30 minutes. We'll bring you some of those results later in the hour. Tonight's primaries come as the White House has already bracing for Republicans to lose control of at least one chamber of Congress. The Washington Post reports that White House lawyers are now preparing Donald Trump's staff for congressional oversight from Democrats. And last week, a White House official told MSNOW, quote, "The vibe right now is we know we're already cooked in the midterms," end quote. Those bad vibes they'll just get worse as gas prices keep climbing. The national average for a gallon of gas right now, just regular, stands at $4.48. That's up 50% since the start of Trump's war with Iran. That war is tanking Trump's already unpopular presidency, and yet, instead of trying to find a way out, he's banking on wishful thinking. Here's how he downplayed the war and the economic fallout today in the Oval Office.
We hit an all-time high stock market today, despite that we're in a little skirmish, military. I call it a skirmish because Iran has no chance. I called all my people and I said, we just set every record in the book. The economy is going great. I ended 8 wars. Nobody else ever ended a war. What's happening is people are learning to buy oil from the United States. I also thought oil would go up to 200, 250, maybe 300. And I knew it would be short term. I look today, it's like at 102. And that's a very small price to pay for getting rid of a nuclear weapon.
Well, oil was $60 a barrel before you started all the crazy, number one. And number two, no one ever said that gas would hit $300 a barrel. I mean, that's just made up. That's just not how that market would respond in such a short time. But here we are. And the kids, by the way, look so interested.
I mean, here's the thing that's interesting to me, Jackie, which is the president may be in la la land, but there's clearly someone inside the administration who knows how to read a poll and is attuned to this political moment and the reality that between the economy, a war of choice, a president who is now delivering on nothing he actually promised, but rather an entire counter program, is not popular with the American people. And they're going to face a very difficult November. That's part of why we're watching this redistricting battle, because if they can't win on the merits, then they're going to try to rejig the rules. So the president may not know or may not want to contend with how unpopular his agenda is, but there's someone inside the White House who does. And given that you've been doing so much reporting from inside that White House, I am curious if you have a sense of who it is that is actually beginning to have these conversations and get people acquainted with reality.
Yeah, Alicia, there's certainly mixed camps here. One camp that, as Michael just read, the vibes are not great. Things feel already baked in for November midterms. And then there's another camp that feel like if there's any takeaway from the 2024 election, it's that voters have a short memory. The political environment can dramatically change in a matter of moments, and that when you actually deploy the president, put him on the ground, get him out there, things can change. That being said, I think it's incumbent on the voters now. That is the big question, and whether or not they are going to buy into what this White House is doing and trying to compartmentalize the Iran war from all of the other economic issues and the economic aftershocks that we're seeing from the war. I think some Republicans would say that right now what they're seeing is a messaging policy. But again, it's incumbent on voters to decide whether they think this is just a messaging problem or if this is a policy problem, and if that the policies that this White House has pursued at the end of the day have caused them direct pain or not.
Well, given the fact that Democrats have won 35 of the last 35 special elections, I think the voters have kind of answered that question. Let's bring in Sarah Matthews, former White House Deputy Press Secretary during Trump's first term. She's now a spokesperson for Home of the Brave, an organization pushing back against Trump's attacks on democracy. And Kurt Bardella, he's the publisher of the Watchdog Report on Substack and co-host of the Party Lines podcast, which is a party in and of itself.
Sarah Matthews, having worked inside the White House, it's actually protocol, right, for the lawyers to come in and say, be aware of the fact that everything you put in emails could be subpoenaed, that could be put in front of the Oversight Committee. This is likely a conversation they've had before. What does it indicate to you that they are re-upping this conversation?
I think that they see the writing on the wall. They know that the midterms are going to be brutal for them. And historically, midterms are not good for the party of the president. But I think that with these midterms coming up, voters feel a lot of buyer's remorse. They feel like they've been bamboozled by this administration. Look, everything that Trump said he was going to do on the campaign trail, whether that was bring down prices or be the peace candidate. In fact, he's done the complete opposite of it. Now, starting this war of choice with Iran, which has just caused the already existing affordability crisis to just be exacerbated, and the cost of everything has just continued to rise. And so I think that now the Trump administration knows that they're actually going to be held accountable if we see not just the House flip, but I think there's a chance that we could see the Senate flip as well, which is something.
Speaking Michael Steele's language.
I love when people finally get to where I've been for a year.
I was not there, if you asked me, say 6 months ago, but I really think that this war with Iran has now even further aggravated voters. And so I think that there's a very good chance that we could see both chambers flip. And that means trouble for the Trump administration, because they are going to now face accountability for the first time, which obviously we have not seen them face with Republicans in Congress. I mean, Trump knows that he's been able to have them in the palm of his hand with Speaker Mike Johnson. Trump has even called himself effectively the Speaker of the House because he knows that they are just completely worthless and not doing anything. And so I think that they're worried, and not just because they think, oh, the Democrats are going to go after us, but there might be something that they're trying to hide, whether that be the alleged corruption that's been going on. We've seen from this administration with all the deals and contracts that have been awarded to Trump family members, or you look at the handling of the Epstein files and their failure to investigate or prosecute a single person in the files, or the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. I think there is a plethora of things that Democrats could go after them for in investigations. And so it makes sense that the White House lawyers are talking to these folks and trying to prepare them for this, because I think that this is going to be their reality when we have a new Congress.
Although it remains to be seen how much they're actually going to cooperate, right? I mean, Kurt, you know this better than anyone. We are on an investigative trajectory at this point of White House is simply not cooperating with Congress, especially in the case where the lone source of power for Democrats is the House. There's already, I reported on this a few months ago, there's already an expectation that the White House counsel's office is going to stonewall, not agree to any of the subpoenas, and let things play out as they are. And that's why you've seen Democrats kind of craft this strategy to go after some of the private companies and corporations and outside entities that have been engaging with the White House, putting them on notice up until this point. I mean, what do you anticipate happening in that vein? And how do you if you were advising Democrats on this, like, what does the accountability agenda look like?
Well, one, if I were Democrats, I would form a select committee just to investigate all the financial dealings involving the first family, government contracts, no bid contracts being handed out. If you follow the money, that's where you're going to find vulnerability. That's number one. Number two, Congress needs to take a real look at actually increasing their ability to enforce their subpoenas, enforce their ability to get accountability. Right now, we have a dynamic, and this is the flaw in our checks and balance system, where the executive branch could say, I'm not going to cooperate with you. Congress will hold you in contempt. Guess who enforces contempt? The Justice Department, who's probably not going to prosecute their current sitting administration. So you need to look at other avenues, whether it's increasing your ability to levy fines for every day that you don't cooperate with a subpoena, whether it's invoking the centuries-old inherent contempt, instructing the sergeant of arms to say, go arrest that person, bring them before us. Like, there are many levers that they can use. They just got to show a willingness to actually deploy them. And what they're going to have to do is give their congressional committees, and we talked about this last time I was here, give them the authority, the autonomy, the staff, the manpower, manpower, the financial resources to do these investigations. There are so much widespread targets across every department, across every agency, from DHS to DOD to the State Department to the Financial Services Department. Following the money, forensic accounting, it is tedious. There are hundreds of thousands of documents you're going to have to get your hands on. It's going to take some time. Democrats have got to manage expectations, particularly with their base. You're not going to, on day one, get anyone before your committee. You're not on day one going to be able to get people to resign. You're not on day one going to get a smoking gun document that sends someone running. It's going to take time. Manage those expectations.
I agree with all of that, and I particularly like the part where you arrest people. I love that part, because I've always said from day one that Congress has the power. Alicia's looking at me, but that's the legitimate power of the Congress, to send U.S. Marshals out to pick your ass up and bring you in. That's it. And all you need is one. You do it one time, and you send the message, oh, you thought we were playing? Mm-hmm. You thought that we were just going to come in here and you're just going to sit there down on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and act stupid and we're not going to respond? Oh, hell no. That's not how this is going to go. That's the attitude they're going to have to bring. Everything you just said is correct.
FAFO.
FAF, absolutely. Sarah, that's why, as the Washington Post is reporting, the White House lawyers are getting into deep prep. Now, they're pulling out everything. They're pulling out all the stops. This roughly 30-minute briefing has included a PowerPoint presentation about how congressional oversight works. Okay, first off, you don't know how that works, and that explains a lot, doesn't it, Alicia? You can see how they're already behaving, right? Their behavior tells you they don't have respect for how the system works. And best practices for handling. According to the two people who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the matter of policy. Okay. Staff from the counsel's office have encouraged political appointees to be careful about what they put in writing and provided guidance on how to respond to congressional inquiries in a timely manner. Oh, now they want to do it the polite and right way. That's my point. Mm-hmm. Signals have already been set from what the Democrats have already started to fashion. The success, as I mentioned, the 35 special elections they won. You can see the writing on the wall. The momentum is there. They've now got the American people a lot more behind them, the Democrats, than they are behind Republicans. So the White House, smart people inside are saying, okay, everybody come in the room, let's settle down. You've been in that space. I don't know if you ever had one of those settle down moments when you were there during the first term. But give us a sense of what that's really like when the staff has kind of been like doing the footloose on a whole nother level, and the lawyers come in and the accountability patrol comes in and go, okay, everybody, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that for a long time that this second administration, Trump 2.0, has thought that they could operate however they wanted to because they felt like they were given this referendum, that they were voted in and that they were able to do whatever they wanted because the American people put him back in office despite all of his previous controversies and everything else. And so they have not had to operate really within the guidelines, and they've been able to blur those lines, like we were talking about with the DOJ, and the DOJ not necessarily being independent as it once was in previous administrations. And so they've been able to operate outside of those guidelines. But if there is a Democratic Congress, and particularly if there's both chambers, that could really spell trouble for them. And so I have to imagine that these White House lawyers, at that 30-minute briefing, they are probably advising people to use the phrases, I don't recall, and I plead the fifth, because I think that's some of the best advice that they could give some of these folks, considering the amount of things that Democrats have the ability to look into. I mean, if there is an accountability agenda, I was saying that you could look into the Epstein files, you could look into ICE, you could look into the corruption happening with the first family. There's so much that they could go after them for. But I do think that we've seen with Republicans that they are not cooperating with subpoenas. We saw this with the January 6th investigation, with Steve Bannon being held in contempt. And so I think that there will be some loyalists who will refuse to cooperate. And I have to imagine that that is also part of the briefing that they're talking about, that they're looking for loopholes of how they cannot cooperate and they can get away with it. And the thing is, though, that even when Trump leaves office, that doesn't mean that accountability is over. There still is a real possibility that he could face, and all the other Trump administration officials could face accountability after the fact, too. The statute of limitations will not expire once he leaves office. And so they can only get away with it for so long.
Well, Today, also at the White House in the Oval Office, nonetheless, with a group of school children, the president signed a memo that brings back the Presidential Fitness Test Award, which makes my hands sweat to this day because I cannot do a pull-up. Here's what the president had to say in front of that group of children.
They would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks. Remember, we sent that beautiful B-2 bomber in, and we blew up their nuclear potential. Don't forget, they killed 42,000 people last month, 42,000 unarmed protesters. And when they start shooting them right between the eyes, and you see a guy fall and another one fall, and you have no guns. When you have transgender mutilization, don't listen to this, kids, of your children, transgender mutilization of your children.
Don't listen. I'm just going to repeat myself. Okay, this is the president of the United States that Republicans in Congress want to build a bunker for. Today, we learned that that there's $1 billion in taxpayer dollars. They're going to help secure the Trump ballroom. Grassley released it as part of his immigration. I don't know what it has to do with immigration, but it's the one vehicle they thought they had, so they wedged it in. The temperament thing we've seen before, to me, it's about the fact that congressional Republicans are not allowing that to be like a deal breaker.
Yeah, I mean, again, I got two kids, who are 12 and 10. I can't imagine watching them sit there behind the president of the United States. Every parent knows your kids do that trip to Washington, and it's a highlight of their year. It's something they look forward to. Being in the trappings of the Oval Office, something they've read about, in their entire education career, and then to be subjected to that. Is mortifying. As a parent, it makes me enraged for them. And again, if for Republicans who love, by the way, talking about family values, love talking about what the 10 Commandments in our classrooms, for you to sit there and be okay with that demonstration of I don't know what to even call it, and not call that out and not have some semblance of accountability of you spend all of your time trying to impose these conservative Christian values on the rest of us, but you're not willing to hold your own president to that standard when kids are in the room. There's not much you can say beyond that.
Don't listen to this while I repeat myself yet again. Sarah Matthews, Kurt Bardella, thank you both so much for being at the table. In just a moment, the Trump Justice Department now demanding the names of every Georgia election worker from 2020. Mark Elias is here. And later, former Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall joins the conversation as the president struggles to answer very basic questions about the war he started. We're going to dive deeper into those erratic remarks. You're watching The Weeknight. The 2026 midterms are less than 6 months away, but Donald Trump is still relitigating the 2020 election. Here's the president today.
I thought I'd easily win the election, which, by the way, I did. And unfortunately, bad things happened. It was a rigged election.
Trump's revisionist take comes after the New York Times reports that the Trump Justice Department is seeking the names of every election employee and volunteer poll worker out of Fulton County, Georgia. Democratic stronghold the Trump falsely accused of engaging in voter fraud back in 2020. Joining us now, Mark Elias, founder of Democracy Docket and chair of the Elias Law Group.
Hey, my friend, welcome. I want to start with a statement from the Fulton County Commissioner, Dana Barrett. She noted, quote, in the aftermath of the 2020 elections, we watched Fulton County election workers Rudy Freeman and Shay Moss have their lives destroyed by Donald Trump and the MAGA machine. Now the Trump DOJ is trying to do that to 3,000 more Georgians, Republicans, Democrats, and independents who were just doing their jobs. Barrett also says the subpoena is not about what happened 6 years ago. It's about sowing seeds and chaos in the 2026 elections and instilling fear in voters, election workers, and volunteers. You're in the thick of this, my friend. What's your take? How does this play out?
Yeah, I think that statement's entirely right. This is not about 2020. I mean, Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. By the way, not only did he tell the other lies and crazy things in front of the kids, he told this lie in front of the kids. But what this is about is setting an example so that other election officials know, not just in Fulton County, not just in Georgia, that if you are involved in even the most, routine tasks involving election administration, because they're looking for the names of a lot of people, right? Not just the people who are on the front lines running the vote tallying machines. That if you are involved in any way in an election that Donald Trump doesn't like the outcome of which, you're not safe. You're not secure. You might be subpoenaed. You might be intimidated. You might be doxxed. Who knows? But that there is no way to administer a free and fair election and be certain that you're going to be okay. So therefore, you ought to do what Donald Trump wants you to do.
Well, just to stay on the topic of sowing seeds of confusion with different parts of the American electorate, you now have 42,000 Louisianans who voted absentee, all before Governor Landry just suspended the U.S. House primaries. This is according to the Louisiana Illuminator. The Louisiana Secretary of State received more than 42,000 absentee ballots from voters for the May 16th election by the time Landry suspended primaries last week for the state's 6 U.S. House races. That's according to records officials provided on Monday. The numbers are taking on added significance after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Louisiana's existing congressional map. Mark, what is the precedent for postponing or suspending an election and engaging in then partisan gerrymandering and resuming this election? And how much do you think this is going to potentially depress voter turnout?
Look, there's no precedent in the United States for this. I mean, to find precedent, you'd have to go to some banana republic or some, corrupt regime that decides that after votes have been cast, that they don't like the way things are going. So they simply halt the election, throw out the ballots, redraw the lines, and try again. I've been through a lot as a lawyer. I've won cases, I've lost cases, and Lord knows I've fought hard, and I have had the other side fight hard back. I mean, politics is not beanbag. But I got to say, what we are witnessing going on right now in states like Louisiana is at a whole other level. I mean, you have the governor of the state unilaterally declaring a state of emergency. You know what the state of emergency was? It wasn't a flood. It wasn't a hurricane. It wasn't a natural disaster. The emergency were the people were voting. And he didn't like the districts they were voting under. So he declared a state of emergency to suspend it. And then the Supreme Court of the United States bent its rules, shortened the period by which the mandate is normally issued so that the state of Louisiana could disenfranchise and disempower minority voters, black voters. And that is what's going on here. I mean, people can say this is partisan gerrymandering, and sure, at the end of the day, that's what the Republicans in Louisiana want to do. But let's not sugarcoat this. Let's not whitewash this. The people the people who are doing this in Louisiana are jubilant. They are celebrating. They are giddy over the fact that they have been able to disenfranchise and take away the voting rights of hundreds of thousands of black voters in their state. And to them, those black voters are not equal citizens. They are obstacles to their partisan agenda.
Well, and so as not to be outdone, Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida is doing much the same, has done it in short order. You had televised for us that you were going to sue him should this map go into place while Donald Trump is living in the past. You are now living in the future. I'm going to read just a little bit of what is written in Democracy Docket about that suit. I found this very interesting. The special legislative session that followed confirmed what the color-coded map had already made plain. When the governor's map drawer, Jason Pareda, appeared before the legislature, he acknowledged that he had drawn the 2026 plan using partisan data. That admission that partisan data was used to draw the 2026 plan is direct evidence of the unconstitutional intent that the Fair District Amendment prohibits. I mean, I have to imagine that Jason Pareda knew better. And so I'm curious what it tells you, Mark Elias, that they are now, one, saying the quiet part out loud, and two, what do you think DeSantis is up to? Because DeSantis has to know that this is going to fail in court. So is he just trying to get his MAGA points while he can?
Yeah, so I promised we'd sue as soon as he signed the bill, and we sued as soon as we signed the bill. For people who didn't catch it, it was 1:24 p.m. He signed the bill sometime just before 1 o'clock, so it took us a little more than a half hour to get on file. And you're right, we're going to win because the Florida Constitution prohibits partisan gerrymandering. That is in the Florida Constitution. Now, what is Ron DeSantis up to? I think two things. Number one, he is just trying to please Donald Trump. And so, I think from his standpoint, he'd rather get caught trying than displease Donald Trump. Number two, DeSantis is arrogant, and DeSantis figures that he has appointed, all or nearly all of the state Supreme Court justices, and that they'll just do his bidding, that they won't look at the state constitution, they won't, follow evidence that is uncontroverted, and they'll just allow this map to go into place. And, look, I am cynical where appropriate about what the courts are going to be up to. And I just called out the U.S. Supreme Court for what it did. But I got to say, I don't believe that the Florida Supreme Court, no matter who appointed them, is going to so debase itself by ignoring the plain text of the state constitution and saying that an obvious partisan gerrymander doesn't violate a provision that says you cannot partisan gerrymander.
So I want to bring the lens out a little bit more, Mark, as we sort of consider everything that we've put on the table this evening, which is pretty heavy when you stop and think about the weight that has been placed on our electoral process by a very bad actor in the president, very bad actor in certain governors around the state, and certainly now the Supreme Court is a bad actor in what it has done, going back to the 2013 cases upending the Voting Rights Act, and here we are. How do you see this ultimately settling? Do we have to pick up whatever pieces or loose ends are left or we find after this election cycle and try to restitch this thing together again? Or is it not tenable to do that? And we have to live in a patchwork environment where the South, which it promised it would rise again, seemingly is doing just that, as every southern state appears to rush to redraw their lines to disenfranchise black voters that they were required to allow vote over the last 100 years. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's neither stitch it together nor live in the patchwork. I think that if there is any silver lining, and believe me, I've been searching and praying for a silver lining over the last few days as all of our faith has been tested in the judicial system, it is that there is now a moral clarity to where we are. And what it means is that when Democrats take power, we cannot have nostalgia to go back. We should not be trying to stitch back together a law that was passed in 1965. We instead should be moving forward with a bolder, more pro-voter, more voter protective legislative agenda moving forward. We need a positive jurisprudence to replace what is currently taking place on the court. And that is not going to happen in a matter of months. It may not even happen in a matter of single-digit years, but it will happen over time. I remind everyone, when Michael Steele was the chairman of the RNC, the Voting Rights Act was supported by the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan called it the crown jewel of American liberty. George Bush signed it into law, reauthorizing it in 2006 with 98 votes in the United States Senate. What we are witnessing is not business as usual. This is not the usual way that politics has taken place. And Democrats need to recognize that and not think we are going to go back to those prior era, but rather we need to be realistic about the challenge ahead. We need to understand what it is about, and we need to build an affirmative pro-voter, pro-democracy movement that will build a stronger pro-democracy agenda when we have power.
All right. Mark Elias, thank you for the clarity, my friend. Appreciate you. After the break, folks, Donald Trump cannot seem to answer a basic question or any basic question about the war he started with Iran. What's going on? Keep it here. We're going to get into it next.
शिकारा संबरी जीरी मुरीदा संगते बेलिरिंद पुटरे पल्ला मनाजीर साई बिलदता सड़दार संगता साई रोशे पका हो खवा बेली मड़ बेसवी मड़ दे देने जी बारगे सिंगार तगा बेली दे मखनो धीरे दे हाजी साई से भी है बर केवला हाजी शिकारा गढ़तगो बेली राजा के मार तुन्ना जादानी साई मीर चाकरो सड़दार मनी साई आफा मथा डोला बरो बेली गोश्ता मुरी दे पुल गोदानी साई मीर चाकरो सड़दार मनी एदा मंगो थई मंगारवा साई तक गुड़ दे हानी या बरानी एला हानी मलूक जानी दगे माझी मता से देख दे एला आफे कथा इर्गिश्ता गांजी साई बूचो को दो आपता था गांजी बेली आफ मलू का वार्तगा आफ दिलार जीवार्तगा एदा गिंद बदी बेअकुला आपके मुरीदा वार्तगा साई को कारतगो आप कष्टगा जी
सर्वाने मजा शाहे शाहे दस्त तीर दाना जरा जल्दी जल्दी तीन आख्तों के तल मले टेके टेके शपुरंगाज मोर वदरे होशे होशे गड़तगा मले सा जले रंदानी जीवात साई दिलमनी शोहाजे झवे नोखे नोखे ढडर आवी तो जगर स्याहे स्याहे दकुड़ी यानो सोख्तगा पानात पानात आसदा चोटिया खड़ो बीता बीता मेहड़ा यलट्टे खाना पीरई गोरमा सगिस गोख पीरई ने जीवाते मुलिद आजुए खुदे केस्तां मनदा जाने हर शशे हत्यार हत्यार जन गोतेगा चौटवी काटार काटार मलगो मोची रखगे संजा संजा काटुश खैराता न हो से तायदा इकुले दरगाह कबूल बिया बिया मावदी दोस्ता सर जुमा गेंदाने